Welcome back to another week of Kernel at the Buzzer. We want to remind you that all the opinions of everyone on this podcast are the opinion of the speaker and the speaker alone. It do not reflect the opinion of the entire Kernel. I'm your host, Colton Johnson, and this week is the last podcast talking about the 4-8 Kentucky Wildcats. We'll talk about transfers that are leaving and what is next for the program, and all that more is coming up next. Welcome back to another week of Kernel at the Buzzer. I am your host, Colton Johnson. Today I got a sole guest. Introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Jonathon Bruner, the assistant sports editor for the Kentucky Kernel, and more importantly for this episode, football beat writer.
He is a football beat writer, and I know typically you'd expect after what happened on Tuesday, we'd be talking about a 70-66 loss that number 4 Kentucky suffered against Clemson, but that will be deferred until next week after the Cats take on Gonzaga this Saturday. Instead, this week we're going to talk about the disastrous season and going into what's looking to be a disastrous offseason for Kentucky football. What have you seen so far since that monstrosity that was the Louisville game, which left a bad taste in everyone's mouth? What have you seen so far?
Well, I mean, here's the thing about the Louisville game is I think more so than just a bad taste, it left things looking very bleak because that was supposed to be the game where you saw the future. You saw Wilcox as RB1. You saw Cutter as QB1. That's supposed to be the future. That's supposed to be what we look forward to, what's going to drive this program for the next 4 years. Well, Wilcox had 2 fumbles. Cutter had 2 picks, only played a half. Yeah. I mean, you left that game really happy about nothing this season, with nothing to look forward to for next season, and it's only gotten worse as they're losing way more than they're gaining. Yeah. And signing day was yesterday. Nothing notable. Your typical round of 3 stars, I think 1 4-star, and players just keep on leaving. I mean, got my phone ready for an update if someone else leaves while we're recording this. So it's like it's just nothing good with this program.
I really, I want to at some point I want to get more into broad stance, the implications of the season as a whole. Yeah. But with the Louisville game, I feel like it's not the only time this season that the Cats have gone into a game and, every single time you have these scenarios of how it could play out. Mm-hmm. That was probably the worst case scenario.
I mean, it really was because, the ideal scenario would be Cutter balls out, Wilcox balls out, and that's what you look forward to. Okay, those guys. Yeah. We got those guys. We can do something. Now we just got to keep our players. And, there's no telling if that would have happened, if maybe some of this would have went down differently so far. But it just feels like – it feels like the players knew last week was irrelevant. It feels like a lot of those guys were playing with their minds made up. Yeah. And I'm sure there's going to be more to come than what has already happened. But I just think you were just looking at a team that was just not there. They weren't there. They were ready to finally be done. Coaches were ready to be done. It just, as a whole, you just saw a team that was ready to be done. They just wanted to get through that 60 minutes and hope they got out of it healthy and call it a day.
Yeah. Now, I feel like the most troubling news, even though it didn't come to fruition, the most troubling news that really could have happened with this program came the next day after Louisville. I remember watching Sunday Night Football, chatting with our editor, Cole Park, and he goes, hey, so we might need to get something ready. And I go, oh, whatever. Whatever should we get ready, Cole? And obviously these were just rumors at the time, and evidently there was some validity to the rumors because it had to be addressed.
Yep.
But the rumors that the great Vince Marrow may be leaving for a similar type of job at the University of Louisville, and I want to know your thoughts when that first hit your ears.
A part of me was surprised, a part of me wasn't. The part of me that was surprised would be that, he wouldn't follow Stoops. If Stoops were to leave or if he were to stay, that he wouldn't stay with Stoops. I just feel like there's been a loyalty between those two that's been super apparent that I just feel like they kind of come as a package deal. Mm-hmm. Part of me that was not surprised was that he would take another job, that he would leave. And, I know he hopped on, KSR and kind of debunked it, so to speak. But even his responses, he never denied it.
No, if it had to be addressed in that manner, there was some weight to it.
Exactly. And, I mean, you were seeing very reliable sources say that there's something to this. Yeah. And even some of the more reliable people within Kentucky media were like, we don't really know. We know there's something to it, but we don't know if it's going to happen, if it's not. Like, it's kind of similar to the Stoops to A&M situation. Obviously a little bit more serious because that actually was going to happen.
Yes.
But it was the same type tailspin of like, no, like we're not going to debunk this because it is true, but how far is it going to get? And obviously didn't get to the point of anything actually happening. But I think that's just a microcosm of this program. Like it's time for everyone to turn the page. Mm-hmm. And if that means an all new coaching staff, that's what that means. And I think that's why some of these coaches are going to look to do just that, even if they take the same job elsewhere. Would have obviously stung a little more being Louisville, being the rival that just ran you off your own field.
Yeah.
Of course. But it's not really surprising that some of these guys, even as loyal as Vince is, are looking elsewhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's kind of one of the troubling things about it all. Like I remember I chatted with another one of our football reporters, Sarah Gibson, on the way over here. And she was obviously we were there on Saturday watching what unfolded, that absolute obscenity. And I just remember asking her, I was like, Sarah, do you think all 12 years of what Mark Stoops has done with this program just got flushed down the toilet? And she said, well, what do you mean by that? And I was like, well, think about it. They had this culture that was built and that bragged on and that brought these guys and that brought the Deion Walkers. And remember how big of a deal it was when they got Dane Key. Mm-hmm. Like, it was bringing the difference makers here. That culture's gone.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think I think that I don't think it's ridiculous to say that it's almost to the point of where he started. Yeah. Even though they have better talent, even though, it shouldn't have went like this, the bottom line is that it did.
Yeah.
It did. So, like, you can say coulda, shoulda, woulda. Yeah, it shouldn't have happened. Yeah, the talent was there, but something went wrong. Something went wrong in the mix, and then this team should not have been a 4-win team.
No.
You look at this team on paper. You don't look at any stats, nothing else. This team should not have only won 4 games.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I don't think it's ridiculous to say. Now, something Stoops said that I do agree with is that it is easier to turn it around than it was when he first got here.
Absolutely.
I do think that statement is true, but I think him very quickly debunking the fact that they're nowhere near where they were when he started, I don't really agree with that because I think, while there might be more talent on the field, the results are the same.
Yeah.
So what's the difference in there being no good players versus a field of good players who have no culture, no discipline, and play like they don't care?
Yep. That's another thing is in past seasons when, they haven't gone their way, especially with these past, the 7 wins, 6 wins, following the 10-win season that they had with Levis, obviously, every single year they kind of had obviously, you got to fill some spots. We still have, we still have Deion. We still got Dane. Those guys are gone.
Yeah.
And I struggle trying to, in my brain, fathom how Mark Stoops is going to find those type of difference makers. In-state, out-of-state. Obviously, Dane was from Lexington. Deion's from Michigan. Yeah. So, they have the ability to bring these guys in. I just think all of their kind of bargaining power with these dudes is gone.
It is, and that's going to make this the hardest part. That's why I truly believe that his time is up. It's time to move on and look elsewhere for a head coach. That's just because, just what you said, once you lose all your recruiting power, that's it. You're done. That's time, and that's where we're at. Yeah. If you can't even keep your homegrown hometown kids like Dane, his dad played here. It's obvious this school means something to him. He declined, or I think he declined Michigan, South Carolina, and Oregon to come here.
And he'll be playing somewhere big.
Oh, absolutely. And Barryon will too, even if it's just to return kicks.
Yeah.
Some school is going to take a chance on him as a receiver just for his kick return ability. But the bottom line is when you can't even keep those guys, the guys you brought in from day one, who you've now kind of raised up through 3 seasons, and they don't want to finish it out here, I think that speaks volumes. I think it shows that this program is lost.
Yeah.
And I think the only way, similar to how it was at the end of the Phillips era, lost, felt hopeless. I think we're just at this point now. And I get the transfer portal and I get this and that, but I don't think Stoops is going to be able to bring in the talent that can solve this problem anymore, just based off where Kentucky. That doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. That's irrelevant.
I think it's kind of, to kind of put it with an analogy, it's kind of like when an NFL team or a football team, they find their quarterback. Obviously, it's rough at first. you're fixing it all together. You have 5-6 seasons of competitive, hard-nosed football. Mm-hmm. Guy at the end of his career, and he's, not playing the best, and it comes to the point where, like, when do we move on from the guy? It's very, as loose as it may be, trying to apply it in that sense, but I kind of want to go player by player per se, like in what the Cats are really losing here. Obviously, I think you have Dane and Barryon going. Mm-hmm. Those are huge. One that I think people are really going to feel the weight of as the season starts. I kind of want to get into him, Keyshawn Silver. Yeah, this guy is a monster, and I think he's a big piece. He was a big piece of this defensive line this year, and they're losing Ox. They're losing Dion. I mean, what are they losing with this dude?
Exactly. I mean, you said it. You're losing. You've already lost 2 big pieces in Ox and Dion, and now you lose him. Now it's just another position on the field where you're like, what are they going to do? Mm-hmm. What are they going to do? And here's the thing. The status of Brad White is still very up in the air. Just the same way Vince was looking elsewhere, who's to say Brad's not? Who's to say Brad might not be the next notification that we get saying he's gone too? Then if you lose him, there's no telling the domino effect of that, of guys that he recruited that are going to be gone as well. I mean, this defense is going to already look completely different, and you're going to have very few veterans to put with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of the only people you're retaining, that come to mind, Ty Bryant coming in his junior year. Yeah. You'll retain him. You can help me out, but
I'm sure Cutter will stay.
Yeah,
I'm sure Cutter will stay. Brock, I'm honestly, I don't even know if we will get a notification for him, but I feel like that's one that's kind of like Cortland Ford. It's not going to surprise us when that hits the news.
Unless he just decides to stay a mentor. But I think Stoops has made it abundantly clear this is no longer Brock's team. This is Cutter's team from here on. And I think that's the right call. But I also think you're putting him in a no-win situation.
Yeah.
All of the receivers are gone. If you can't, odds are you're not going to be able to replenish them with receivers to the same level.
Yeah.
I know if you can hold on to Hardly Gilmore, that'd be a big pickup. He looked good in the. He didn't get a lot of action, but when he did, he looked good. That could be, your future wide receiver, one of the future. Yep.
As troubling as difficult as it may seem, if they can somehow hold on to Macklin.
Yeah, it's
not official yet.
Right. But you kind of look at him. What if he follows? What if he follows Brown and Key? And then it's like that's really Hardly's all that's left.
Yeah, I think there's so many positions that you kind of, because the thing with the quarterbacks, obviously I think Cutter's going to stay. I think Gavin will stay. Because with the whole Louisville thing, obviously Cutter goes out, with this concussion. But when Gavin came in and he goes down and leads him down to that first touchdown, the game's not over. It's 7-20.
Yeah.
That's a 2-possession game after the first series in the third quarter. That's a very live football game. Yep. And they have the dude who's been their starter the entire year on the bench with his helmet off. Mm-hmm. Don't even know where it is. If they said, Brock, get in there, he'd take about 5 minutes, go find the old bowl and put it on his head. But I can't imagine a world where Brock stays. I can't imagine a world. Gavin's a weird one because, I don't know. You go Rutgers, Kentucky. Where else do you go after that?
Yeah, and he got one more year left? Or is he done? Because he transferred as a senior, I believe.
Say I didn't. He might be done. I'm not sure. That's on me for not knowing that. But one of the things that kind of, I know we've touched on it like after the game, but the responses that Ty Bryant gave, the response that Jamori Macklin gave in the press conferences, and honestly the response that Stoops gave. It's like sitting there and you're trying to ask these guys about the game, but I think when you have like a game like that's the last game of the season, as much as you want to talk about the game, the questions and the answers are going to be about the season as a whole.
Yep.
And I think the question that was asked of Ty wasn't overtly wanting an answer that was that broad, but I feel like a bit of a door was, it felt like he wanted to say what he said, and I think that was the same video with Jamori. He was waiting to say what he said, and he wanted to say what he said, because I think, there was just evidently a lack of leadership and accountability to this team through all 13 weeks.
Yeah, and it translated on the field. That's why when those guys said those responses, I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
It's been evident in their play that there's nobody that can, go up to you and go, hey man, lock it in. Like let's go. Let's figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear that wasn't there because once things, you know, you look at the Ole Miss, that was the peak of this season. You look at Ole Miss, but you look after that, and it's like once it got off the rails, you just knew they were going to lose the game. I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
There was no, you know, they're going to get down, they can come back. No, you knew.
Yeah.
You knew quick. I mean, they just laid down. And I think, you know, both of those guys were looking for that moment to publicly say, hey, this is what you all are seeing is an accurate reflection of what's going on when you don't see stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I think another thing that shows it is one of your own players going to the concession stand in the middle of the game.
That might be one of the craziest things that I've ever seen in my adult life.
Yeah.
Was Aaron Gershon. We were sitting, probably Aaron Gershon. He was sitting a row in front of me at the press conference. We're waiting for Stoops. One took forever to get to that press conference. Now I understand you got to address the team and stuff, but Gershon, I look up and obviously eavesdropping. We're journalists. He goes, hey, take a look at that, and he puts his phone to the left and. This is Gerald Mincy at the concession stand with his wallet out, pulling a couple bucks out to get a dog.
I mean, like, dude, like that right there, that's the whole microcosm of this whole season.
Yeah.
Is just like things that just make you go, why? Like, why would you do that? Like, you know, they did nothing this season to help themselves ever. Yes. So I think those two responses, seeing what you can see in the public, just what you can turn on the film, you can go watch every game they played this year. You see the quotes that the players and coaches give. You see players going to get dogs mid-game. Yeah. And, you would believe that, they probably don't show up on time for meetings. Yeah, they probably don't do stuff the way they're supposed to do.
They probably don't show up to lifts wearing the right stuff. They probably – because it's just discipline.
I mean, it simply is, and that's been one of the things that Mark Stoops has hung his hat on since he's got here. Even the teams that were 7-5, hang your hat on discipline. We're a disciplined football team. We play hard. We never give up. That's all this team did. They didn't play hard. They always laid down. Yeah. And they were undisciplined as it gets. And that, and I think Stoops has completely lost them. So, there's going to be a lot of turnover, but what's the difference if you just get the same mentality group of people in here? I don't.
Yeah. I mean, every time I find myself looking at UK's schedule and I see all the results. I know we brought it up on multiple occasions, but I remember sitting here with I think Cole was in here. I think it was me, you, Cole, and Sarah, and we were giving our record predictions. You said, Sarah, I don't know. I might be. Don't quote me on this. You have to go back and watch it. I think I said it was a 6-win football team. You might have said 7.
I said 6. Yeah, 6-6.
You said 6-6. Sarah might have said 7 because we were all sitting here. We're like, well, Vandy's a sure win. Yeah. I think they can get it done against South Carolina and all this crap. And it's like, oh, maybe they can, steal one at Tennessee. But none of that crap happened. The reality of the situation is this team was one void miraculous upset away from not winning a game in the Southeastern Conference this year. And that does something about that doesn't sit well with me. Yeah,
one prayer on 4th down away. If that ball gets batted down, that fourth down in Oxford, if it gets batted down, they're winless. Yeah. And here's my thing. Any other program in this conference, especially if they had a tenured head coach, that coach would not be here. Yeah. I solely that coach would not be here. But for whatever reason, at least so far, anything can happen. It's still very, very early into this process. Yeah. But with the portal opening in a matter of days, the last thing you want is a head coaching ongoing while the portal's open.
Monday is going to be ugly.
Yeah, so that's why I don't think Stoops is going anywhere. I think if it was going to happen, it would have already because you got to get a new coach in here right now because the portal's about to open and you need it now more than ever.
The way that Stoops walked into that press conference, the way that he conducted himself, obviously he was upset and disappointed, but the way there was just something about him, you could tell that he probably those conversations of is this it? I guarantee those have already been had.
Yeah, for sure. That's why it's while the fans can still hold on hope, I would not. I would be shocked if anything happens this late in the process. And it's really unfortunate because I know BBN all over social media, they had their eyes on John Summerall. That's who they wanted. Yes. This was Summerall's team. Some people were already calling it Summerall's team. Here's the thing. If you don't get him in this hiring cycle, you're not getting him for a long time because he is going to get a better job.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that North Carolina job. He's going to be right in the mix for that if he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And why would he want to come to a school where he's already going to be handicapped this late in the process because the portal's going to be picked clean already?
You know, it's bad when the Tulane athletic director has to put out a tweet that says, we hear all of you of the Green Wave. We're doing our best, having our best effort trying to keep John Summerall, with his feet on the ground. And that's a wild thing for an AD to tweet out.
It really is.
I mean, it's just I went back and I looked at every single game and I was wondering, like, when did it go wrong? When did it go wrong? And I think from the defense, because obviously there was a big shift in defensive performance, especially from the rushing defense of it. Now, I think there is a thing that can be attributed to, and now it's you don't want to say one player is the reason the team sucks or one player is the reason that the team's good, but obviously one player can make a huge difference. And I think for the defense, that was De'Aaron Jackson. Yeah. I think when he hit the sideline, that's the reason the A gaps and all that they kept opening after that. So I don't really know, man.
I mean, for as far as the defense goes, I look at that Florida to Auburn. That's when I sounded the alarms and was like, oh no. Yeah. Because Florida, they got gashed in the passing game. Yeah. And Florida ran the ball well too. Yeah. And then you look at Auburn, they set records for how well they ran the ball.
What ball have five? So Florida's ball, he had 5 touchdowns that game?
Yes.
And Jarquez Hunter had 278 yards and 4 touchdowns?
Something like that, yeah. I mean, yes. He set a record for the most an opposing opponent has ever put up, rushing yards-wise, at Kroger Field. I mean, that's when I was like, oh, no, this defense is toasted. Yeah. They can't do nothing well. And then I was covering that Auburn game, and, the pressers were very eye-opening. That's when I left that presser going, oh, yeah, they're done. Yeah. Because Brad was asked that same question. Hey, you guys got demolished in the passing game last week. You get ran through this week.
What's going on?
How do you find that middle ground to defend both? And even the players were just kind of like, I don't know. And I mean, and they played like they didn't know. So, I mean, they weren't lying. They played like they didn't know what to do. And so I don't know. I don't see brighter days ahead for this program, unfortunately.
Well, then my next question that I have for you is going to be difficult to answer because it is, do you have any positives? Not in from the season. So, any positives from the season? Any positives going forward? Because, I mean, obviously I think what people covering this program, what people that are fans of this program were kind of hoping was that Cutter would show it, even if they lost to Louisville. Yeah. Everyone knew that Louisville was a better football team. Even if they lost to Louisville, if Cutter could show him something, be like, okay, like this guy could be, take us back to the promised land, could be what we thought Devin Leary would do, could do what we thought Brock Vandagriff could do. He could be that guy. And everyone, after that second half of Texas, when going back and looking, he made some great throws. Yeah. Did he throw 1 or 2 picks at Texas? Yeah. I don't know if you have any positives. I'm trying to muster up some here because even with all the guys leaving, don't know if you have any light notes for this program. The Ole Miss game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the brightest spot of the season. I would say the emergence of Wilcox was impressive this year. Yes. I think if they can hold on to him, that'll be a huge positive. I mean, I think that'd be huge. I think if they can hold on to some of the core that has been built, and I'm mainly speaking about Hardley, Wilcox, Cutter, which I don't think they're going to have trouble holding on to Cutter. He's literally been told openly. I mean, Stoops has told the media this is his team now. He's got the keys. So I don't think he's going anywhere. But Wilcox and Hardley, you just don't know yet. If they can hold on to both of those, you have somewhere to start with this offense. And I think that's the most important part now is you have to keep a few that can help what you bring in. And I think you have to weed out who were, the so-called leaders who were allowing some of these issues to happen. Yeah. I think if you can weed those guys out and you can kind of keep some of your core that you maintain, if you can hold on to Brad White, because I do think despite some of their struggles this year, he's a good coordinator. I really do. Oh, yeah. And I think every year he turns down job offers to stay here. I do. But every year his phone probably rings, and he chooses to stay here. I think that means something. And I think he can get some good names here. But I think if they can just hold on to the little core that they've got left, I think that can kind of slow the bleeding a little bit. And then if they can, land some transfers, really recruit really well and find some hidden gems, kind of similar to how, Coach Mingione finds those gems for the baseball team and they turn into studs. I think that's what Kentucky needs to kind of get back on the map. I think next year they might only be, I think if they win 3 or 4 games in conference, will be a step up. Is it where they should be? No. They shouldn't be here, year 13 of Stoops winning 4 games in the SEC. But it's better than winning 1. And I think, if you can go, I think it almost resets the rebuild. And so I think you look at what Stoops did well when he got here, found some hidden gems, made it work, kept some of the core. When the core started meeting the better talent, that's when you got 10 wins. And I think it's just time to reset that whole process, run it back again, and see if you can find that magic again. But I think keeping the core on both sides of the ball, what little is left, can really help. And that would probably be the only way I could see this not going completely off the rails.
Yeah. See, I'm looking because I know Hardley missed most of the year. I don't think that he appeared in 4 games, so I think that they should still be able to throw a red shirt on it. I know Cutter for sure is still
yeah, because he appeared in 4 even.
I don't know because I know Hardley missed. I mean, at the beginning of the year, Hardley wasn't even supposed to play at all.
Yeah, I know his first catch didn't come until Tennessee, I think. But I think he might have played in the game before that, just didn't catch anything. I'm not sure. I think it would be close with him. Yeah. But if they can, that'd be great. I mean, that'd be wonderful.
That was another thing I wanted to touch on real briefly. A transfer that I really think is going to go under people's noses that they don't really – Anthony Brown-Stevens, I think, is a huge loss.
Yeah, I know I do. I mean, I think that, especially because he would have had a much larger role.
Absolutely. With
Key and Brown gone. I think he could have made a case to be your 1 going into next year, and he's not a bad receiver. He's not a bad player. I think he with some other players got just really suffocated by a really bad offense. I think, Key still did his thing. He still put up a career high. But everybody else's numbers were down who were returners. Everybody's numbers were down across the board. Yeah. So I think he's one of those players who, under the right circumstances, has all the potential in the world. And I think with a new, better quarterback, he might have been able to show that. But no, I think all 3 of the receivers we lost are probably going to go somewhere else and do really well.
Most likely.
I just think that's the unfortunate part.
Dane for sure, because Dane, out of all those guys, Dane is the only one that I could see stepping. Like he could probably step onto any SEC roster he wanted to and have a role.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think he's that good.
Yeah.
So Barryon as a returner, yes. Do I see him taking him unless he goes somewhere where wide receiver is a position of need, even if it is a high level program. Yeah. Georgia very seldom has the highest level of receivers of it. They have McConkey and Pickens and stuff, but I struggle seeing where this program goes from here.
Yeah, it's very bleak at the moment, to say the least.
Well, brother, any closing thoughts as we wrap up this final chat of this illustrious 2024 Kentucky football season?
I mean, it was great to cover with y'all. I mean, that's a lot of fun, a lot of memories made, but certainly not positive ones when it comes to the play on the field. No. So we'll see what they got next year. I mean, they play the same SEC opponents, so I guess you know what you're looking at, I guess. You can already look at them now. So, yeah. But that's about all I got, brother.
Brother, I want to appreciate you for coming on for this final football chat. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure. And that'll do it this week for Kernel at the Buzzer. We want to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Kernel at the Buzzer. We'll be back with plenty more next week after Kentucky men's basketball takes on Gonzaga. That matchup is set for this Saturday. But until then, I want to encourage you to head on over to KBarKernel.com or KBarKernel Sports on Twitter or X for all of your UK athletics coverage. And until then, I've been Colton Johnson. We'll see you next time.